Blessed be, guys and ghouls. You're in the car with me today. I've got some errands that I need to run, so I figured I would kill two birds with one stone and carve out a little bit of time to hang out with you guys while I'm running errands. So we'll see how this goes. So today I've got to run to the storage unit. I've got to go to UPS to drop off some returns. And then I think I'm gonna have to go to Target real quick to pick up some tubs. We've been doing some spring cleaning and we need some place to store all of our crap. So that's what's on the agenda for today. In case you don't know, when I film these videos, unless there's something like really pressing at the moment, I try to plan out my videos in advance and figure out like different things I want to talk about. And the topic I chose to talk about today is feminism. This is going to be interesting because obviously I'm driving. I don't have any notes in front of me, so I'm just going to be talking out of my ass. So here goes nothing. Feminism. Man, what a loaded topic. Oh, I know a great place to start. So I've been watching some trailers for this new show called Ms. America. It looks really interesting. It looks like it's probably based on some historic events, but it's not anything I'm familiar with. I'm looking forward to starting to watch the show so that I can kind of look into it, because obviously I've mentioned before I'm a big history buff, and although I try to really enrich my knowledge of like the ancient past, the ancient history, all the way up to really say the Gothic era, more recent events I'm a little spotty on. So it looks like it takes place in probably the late 60s, early 70s, and basically it appears like it centers around this woman who is, I guess, to put it as Hollywood would put it, like an anti-feminist, a very like women belong naked in the kitchen, not naked in the kitchen, wow, barefoot in the kitchen, pregnant, while the man goes off to work, and like the woman's realm is in the household and that's where she belongs and she should defer to her man in all matters. And meanwhile, she is put at odds against the feminists of the time, who, as we know, that was like the era, you know, the bra burning movement, you know, and which is kind of cool that that's sort of having a resurgence now, but I'll get into that later. But it's interesting to see it from the more conservative perspective. I definitely identify myself as a feminist. I don't believe that in our society that we currently live in, there is such a thing as a perfect feminist. I definitely have my moments where I am not as feminist as I would like, but it's a journey. It's a journey. It's not something that you either are or are not. It's something you work towards. So I work towards being a good feminist. But it's interesting to see the different sides, because the idea of feminism is that women deserve to be treated equally to men. Sounds simple enough, but we do not live in a simple world, because you think about how I just got off on the wrong exit. That's what I get for trying to talk about hot stuff while driving. Oh man, quick sidetrack. A while back we were looking for a new place to live. It ended up working out, but we were looking for a new place to live, and our budget at the time was extremely tight. And we found a house for like $900. So to hear like renting an entire house for $900 a month is unbelievable. And that's how we kind of approached it. We're like, this is too good to be true. The house was near here, which is why it reminds me. We did a quick drive-by of it, and the house did exist, and it looked fine. So I emailed the guy and I'm like, hey, we're really interested in this house, but this price is a little unbelievable. Can you tell me more about it? And he gave me this whole spiel about like, oh, well, I'm moving out of the country and I have to rent it quick and I just need someone in there right away. And I'm like, okay, cool. So, let's schedule a walkthrough. And he's like, oh, no, we can't do that because, I have to move and I really just need you to, send me the money and it's yours. And I'm just like, no dice. Like, if we're not getting a walkthrough, then it's not happening. And he's like, oh, no, believe me, this isn't a scam. I wouldn't do that to you. Like, I just need you to rent this. And I'm just like, no, buddy, like, I get it. Like, you're saying it's not a scam, and it might not be, but the fact of the matter is you got to have a walkthrough before you move in anywhere, like, bottom line. And he was like, he emailed me back, like, saying, like, oh, no, you've got to believe me. And it was, like, obviously a scam. Obviously. Like, not even, like, a good scam. So not only did I just stop emailing him, the listing was on Zillow. So I flagged the property on Zillow and I forwarded all of the emails to them saying like, hey, this listing on your website is a scam. Like, you need to take it down so no one gets suckered. So, and they did. So that's kind of a relief. But anyhow, that was a sidetrack, but I just, that neighborhood made me think about it. Anywho, feminism. I feel like it's a balance because on one hand, if you're sharing your life with someone, then the responsible thing to do is to make decisions together and to defer to each other, absolutely. But at the same time, that's still kind of a feminist view because you're not just deferring all decisions to your husband. And back then it was husband. Instead, you're making decisions together equally with your partner, be it a husband, wife, cat, a non-binary partner, what have you, etc., etc. It's interesting because the arguments of the non-feminists are based on like a nugget of reasonability. And because we already live in a society that's pre-tuned to adhere to those standards, it seems really plausible very easily to us. But at the same time, it's like, no, there's no way. There's no way. We're stronger because in any relationship, you're stronger together. Even if it's just a relationship with yourself, even if you're a single person, which is completely valid, and I really enjoyed my time as a single person, but that's a different story. My point is, as a woman, you shouldn't have to have a man in your life to feel validated. You shouldn't need a man in your life in order to make decisions for yourself as an adult. And if you choose to make decisions with another adult or any other person, then those decisions should be reached equally with open communication and each person's opinions being equally weighted. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. So it kind of makes you think. And at the same time, also, it kind of illustrates how these small acts of defiance are just so completely ghastly to the opposing side. Like, for example, there's a part in the trailer for the show. Again, I have not seen this show, but there's a part where it looks like she's in like a lecture hall. She speaks to a young woman in front of her. The young woman reaches back and like hands her a pen, and she notices that the young woman's pits aren't shaved. And I think it's Cate Blanchett is the one who plays the main character, so she's kind of eternally unflappable. But also, like, some people are seriously grossed out by the idea of a woman not shaving her pits, which is just mind-blowing to me. Like, obviously I shave, but that's my choice, and it's not even a choice I feel that passionate about. Like, I would be totally cool not shaving my pits. I just would be worried about it being itchy. That's about it. Because people aren't grossed out when guys don't shave their pits, and it's no less or more hygienic than a woman not shaving her pits, because society is so freaked out about women's cleanliness, which is just like, what could be more private? Like, there are a few things more private than what you do in the shower. But I digress. It's just weird that women people get so caught up and their panties in a bunch, excuse the term, but they get so wound up over the cleanliness of women when it's none of their business and it's all kind of irrelevant. I mean, yes, we all want to live in clean bodies. We all want to smell nice. But at the same time, as long as you're not like blatantly unhygienic, wafting BO, not showering, just totally disgusting, like, you know, as long as you're maintaining a decent baseline of personal hygiene, if you don't reek, it doesn't matter. Like, unless it is affecting you directly, it doesn't matter what another person does with their bodies, especially something as minor as body hair. Alrighty, all done with the storage unit. I completely
Wi-Fi than ever before.
Podcast was playing. All done with the storage unit. I forgot I also had a carload of stuff to go get donated. So figure since I'm out and about, might as well go drop off the donations as well. You know, just get this whole spring cleaning thing officially tied up. Plus, husband and sometimes sister-in-law use my car for Instacart. So the more space I can free up in here, the better. Coffee break. It's so hot out today. It's bananas. Right, what was I talking about? Oh yes, feminism. I certainly pick the easy topics, don't I? Let's see, we just talked about body hair, or even lack of body hair. I was watching this really interesting documentary on Brazilian feminists. I think Grace Neutral was in it. It was really cool. Really, really cool. I've seen a couple of Vice little segments that she's done. Anyhow, as you may or may not know, the number of women sexually assaulted every day in Brazil is pretty extraordinary. And you take into account that Brazilian women, as far as they are like generalized and viewed as by the world. Hey everyone, sorry I cut out there. You know how I was talking about how hot it was? See a little bit. You know how I was talking how hot it was? Well, my phone overheated and shut off. I let it cool down a little bit, and I've turned on the AC defroster, so hopefully that'll help my phone stay cool. We'll see. I don't know what it'll do to the audio, so we're just taking this journey together. Normally I wear a mic when I record, but of course I didn't do that this time because that would have been too sensible. So I just went to drop off my donation. Someone had told me that Goodwill was like open for donations, and that you could just like, you know, they had it set up, because we're still under self-isolation right now, so I'm trying to be really careful. But lies. Oh, we were talking about that Grace Neutral documentary. Yeah, Brazilian women on average are far more likely to be sexually assaulted than women in a lot of other countries, most other countries, in fact. I don't know if it's the worst in the world, but it's up there. But what really is kind of interesting, because there's just this contrast, because also Brazilian women are typically viewed globally as representing just this epitome of beauty. But at the same time, like, for a country that's known for its beautiful women, they're not treated very well there. And it's interesting to look and see why. There's just these women who are it really comes down to women being viewed and treated as objects. And their looks are really where their value lies, which is so messed up and so not true or fair. It's ridiculous. But that's what happens, it just comes down to women being viewed as objects, not people. But it's interesting because there's this underground movement of feminists in Brazil, and it's just such a spectacular community to kind of peek in on, and it's just so beautiful and complex. And I love it. I love it so much. And I really feel like it's just a reflection of a refraction. That's a better way of putting it. It's like a refraction of movements that we are seeing all over the world, of this sort of feminist resurgence, this new generation of men and women who are just fed up with it. So you're seeing these women redefining what it means to be a woman in the world, who are demanding they be treated equally as men, to be viewed as a person and not an object, to have their contributions to society seen as valid. But at the same time, they're still celebrating the fact that they are women. Because that's a really interesting point that I see a lot of non-feminists make, is that feminists just want to be men, or they don't want to be feminine. And it is so not true. Couldn't be further from the fact. Feminists are the most feminine people I've ever met. You get these non-feminists who just really don't view their bodies as part of themselves, and they are not in touch with who they are physically, whereas feminists are far more likely to embrace themselves physically, mentally, emotionally, every aspect of their being. Now granted, women in this society as a whole are really out of touch with who they are, because we're often not viewed as real people, just objects, just symbols, just something to put up on a pedestal. But I'm seeing this resurgence of women who are really getting to know themselves, and I think that was where I was supposed to turn. I don't know, this is a weird subject to talk about while driving, because it really does require a lot of focus and thought, but we're trying. I don't know. I've been reading a lot of Lisa Lister lately. If you have not read any of her books, I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. Especially if you possess a vagina. Like, even if you don't, I still recommend it, but especially if you do. She's kind of a controversial figure lately. I feel like a lot of her controversy, like most controversy, is based out of ignorance. One of my favorite books, period, definitely one of my favorite books from her, is Witch. And I saw a meme going around talking about how, like, oh, nobody should buy this book. This is so insensitive. It hates trans people. And it's like, it was obviously written by someone who has not read the book, because if you do not know anything about Lisa Lister, she is definitely a feminist icon. She's an activist who talks passionately about being in touch with your lady bits. And she is a practicing witch, and her female anatomy plays a huge part in her practice, and she talks about it quite a bit. However, she also, like, all throughout her book, although she talks about being in touch with your vagina and your uterus and your womb, basically your womb space, she calls it, which I think is a really great way to put it, because all throughout the book, although she refers to your womb space a lot, she also talks about how this doesn't necessarily mean physical womb. It means more like the part of you that is in touch with your feminine side and your ability to create, not just, create people, but create anything. And she also, like, has a big disclaimer at the beginning stating that she understands that she talks about how, as a cis person, she doesn't really speak towards the trans perspective very well. Like, it's not something that she has personally had a lot of experience with. She has a big, like, apology and disclaimer at the beginning of her book, basically talking about how she doesn't want trans people to feel left out in her book. She is just merely speaking from her own perspective and experiences, and how, although she refers to the womb space quite often in her book, she encourages people to kind of interject that with, just their, maybe not necessarily their physical womb, but their kind of spiritual womb. Because also, like, I have a friend who had a hysterectomy before she was 30. And she talks about how even if you no longer have a womb, but you have in the past, it's like the same thing goes for you. Like I said, obviously the person who wrote that meme did not actually read the book. They probably just, like, paged through it and just, like, took out of it what they wanted out of context. But anyhow, I've been reading a lot of Lisa Lister lately. She talks a lot about, like, getting in touch with your anatomy. How, so many women now just don't know anything about their bodies below the waist. And that's just incredible, because that's part of you. That's like not knowing your hand, like not knowing your face. I mean, I get it, it's a part you can't really see, but still, it's a part of your body. Like, yes. Why wouldn't you know about that? Like, why wouldn't you be familiar with that part of your body? Like, it's part of you. And not only do individuals not know that part of themselves, but also just the medical community kind of puts a blind eye towards that. Alright, I'm at UPS and I've got to drop these off because we're getting into territory that I can talk about for quite some length, so I'll be right back. Alright guys, we are 1 for 3 today. So apparently the UPS store is open, but not on Sundays. And today is Sunday, which I should have known, but I was just so motivated to get stuff done, I didn't think about it. So that just leaves Target, which will never let me down. Will you, Target? Oh, yes, we were talking about lady bits in the medical community. Of course, what else would we be talking about? As I'm sure a lot of you know, the medical community has a long, colorful history of knowing absolutely nothing about women's reproductive health. But it's so ingrained in our history that it's even affected our language. I mean, look at the word hysterical. Comes from the root word meaning, hyst, like think hysterectomy. Basically, hysterical means like from the womb. Because when you were hysterical, it was considered to be a female problem that could be solved by treating your lady bits with disturbing and questionable methods that I'm not going to get into right now. If you really want to look them up, please do. I highly encourage you. It's pretty disturbing stuff. But my point is, even today, when doctors go to medical school, the baseline of their education is to treat patients as men. Like the male patient is their baseline. And female patients are just male patients with funky hormones. So it's interesting that there's like no like difference there. This is like on one hand, like here I am talking about how men and women need to be treated equally. But additionally, physically there are some differences. And doctors just are not taught about it in school the way they should be. For example, heart attacks. I was watching a really great video by, I think it was a React video from Dr. Mike here on YouTube. But men and women can show symptoms of heart attacks very differently. And because of that, women with heart attacks often go undiagnosed because they don't recognize it for what it is, even by doctors. Because again, like when doctors go to medical school, their education is based on the assumption that women are just men with funky hormones. But there's a few very important differences that are just not discussed. But additionally, like female reproductive health is something that is still in its infancy as far as like actually studying it and understanding it. Because even in the medical community, it was something that doctors were just not encouraged to learn, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it's just because society was just felt so uncomfortable talking about it or even acknowledging it like so thoroughly that there wasn't any passion to uncover the mystery. I'm not sure, but my point is certain reproductive diseases like endometriosis are still relatively new and unfamiliar diagnosis, which is horrible because I know many women who suffer from endometriosis and PCOS. These are still diseases that aren't understood very well in our society, even in the medical community. And why is that? It's because people are afraid to acknowledge that women have anything down there. Like, they just assume that it's just, I don't know, some balloon that grows babies, pushes them out, and then shrinks back. Who knows? My point is, not only do women not know this about themselves, they're not familiar with what is or is not normal for themselves, but also the medical community really doesn't know what's normal. They do to an extent, but it's still new territory, and it's still something that they are figuring out now. It's only, I want to say in the past 50 years maybe, that they've actually started taking women's reproductive health seriously. And I'm using seriously pretty loosely here because there's still a lot of controversy there that I'm, again, not going to get into because then this video will be 50 million years long and I will stir up some shit that I don't really want to deal with right now. My point is, like, this is really complicated stuff and it shouldn't be. So lately I've been doubling up on a plague mask when I go places, but I'm not quite sure where it went, so we're just going to be rocking this bad boy. Alright, I'm going to head into Target and I'll see you guys in a few. Alright, we're back. Sorry if it's a little loud. I'm blasting the AC because it is hotter than balls in here. I hate going to the store right now. I hate it so much. It's better than it was, but my first time out of the house post-COVID, I had to go to the grocery store. It was like 3 weeks after isolation, and I full on had a panic attack, and I wish I could say things have improved, but not much. It was just a nightmare. Like, I ended up buying more than I was planning on it because, well, let's face it, that's the Target way. But also, I don't want to have to do this again. It was so shitty. Like, the line was hella long, and there was a guy at the front of the line who was arguing with the cashier because he claimed something was on sale and it wasn't scanning up on sale, and we were all waiting in line forever and ever. And then there was a girl behind me who wasn't adhering to social distancing, and so I could feel her like way uncomfortably close to me. And until it got to the point where like we moved up in line a little bit, and they actually have stickers on the floor showing where you're supposed to stand in order to adhere to social distancing. And like, I pointedly like looked at the floor, stood on my sticker, and that's when she finally looked down and was like, oh, whoops, that's right, that's a thing. And she stood on her sticker, so that was good. It wasn't fun. I don't like I usually love shopping, but these days, nah, I can do without it. But unfortunately, this was a trip that really couldn't wait. So I just got a little bit more than I had planned on it so that I don't really have to go later. Or, what I tried to do was get stuff that I had to get in store this trip, because that way, if there's other things we need, we can just do the drive up. Since I use the Target Circle app, we can just order stuff online and then do the drive up, and they take it to your car, which still isn't great, but it's better than actually going into the store. Feminism. So obviously this is a big subject. It's something that people have been discussing for years, and it's something that we're still kind of figuring out how deep it lies. But I guess the point that I've been trying to make in this video is that our society has a bad habit of objectifying women. And not just men, but women objectify themselves as well. And I personally find that is really sad. And I'm just happy to see people are starting to realize it's okay to have these kind of questions. It's okay to talk about these things. It's encouraging me to see these people that are really challenging the status quo, embracing themselves, embracing others, realizing that it's not okay to be objectified. We need to take control of our future. It's just encouraging to me. For the vast majority of human history, women have been treated as second-class citizens. And it's really encouraging to me to see that in the past 100 years, that's been changing. And it makes me really happy to see us evolving. We still have a long way to go, and there's still so many misconceptions and a lack of information. But we're on our way, and I can't wait to see what sort of things are discovered in the years to come. Hopefully, one day, we will live in a world where women can walk down the street without being objectified, where trans women are recognized as being women, where people, regardless of gender, are accepted whether they want to put their career first or put their home first, or the balance between the two is is recognized and embraced. And I hope one day we live in a world where a woman can walk down the street without worried about being assaulted. where young girls aren't sexualizing themselves long before they're ready, because that's what they perceive as being powerful. That women have an equal footing in the creative sphere as men, where we realize that we are stronger together than we could ever be apart, and that by embracing what all of us have to offer makes us stronger as a whole. And that's what feminism is to me. It's not about women wanting to be more powerful than men. It's not about women wanting to become men. It's not about even women wanting to be equal to men. It's more about all of us being equal to each other, and all of us coming together as a society to make our world a better place, and realizing that each person has a place in it. Alrighty, I am back home. Gonna unload my car, bask in the sun, and cuddle up to the baby. Stay spooky.